Hi, my name is Leah Day, and welcome to this video for the Free Motion Quilting Project. Today we're learning a new cool stacking design. This is what happens when we stack together lots of triangle shapes, then we go inside of those triangles and we fill them almost with kind of a paisley design, lots of echoes, lots of ripples. So this is called trapped ripples. Let's get on the machine and see how it works. So the first thing I'm going to do is start breaking up my space into triangles. And for a long time I would do this by stitching individual triangle shapes like this. And that works, certainly. But then one day I realized that you can actually break down your space easier by stitching all the way across. And you can form a triangle. Of course we've got this weird end, but basically you can form a triangle just by stitching some straight lines into a space. And then so long as you work off of a corner to an edge, you can continue to break it down into smaller triangles. So here I'm just randomly stitching in all different directions, trying to break this down into rough triangle shapes. They don't have to all be the same size. Like this one's, these are a little bit smaller. Some I've got a few that are a little bit bigger. That's perfectly fine. In fact, actually, it adds to the look of the design to have a lot of different shapes and sizes. And so you can kind of see how even this area, let me back up my camera so you can see it. Even this little area right here, I was able to break that down and make that little first triangle I stitched make sense just simply by stitching more lines all around it, connecting these points from basically the point to the edge. It's one of those things, it was kind of a eureka moment for me whenever I realized, okay, so basically, so long as you work off those points, you can come up with triangles within any space. So this was kind of a weird parallelogram, and I've turned it into 3 triangles there. So I'm going to continue to break up this space just by stitching these straight lines. And feel free to leave some shapes really open, some spaces really open. That's perfectly fine. I think it actually makes it more interesting to have some really big open spaces and some, really, really tiny spaces too. There's no right or wrong way of doing it, but it's just simply working, corner to corner or corner to edge in order to break everything down into triangles. Okay, so now we're ready to start actually filling these in with the ripples. And here's how this works. I'm going to basically stitch almost like a little teardrop shape into one corner, into one point, and now I'm going to bounce back and forth and ripple with echoes all the way through until I fill up that triangle completely. Yeah, zoom in a little bit because this is pretty dense stitching and you might be missing it. There we go. So I'm basically stitching out and around. I hit the edges of the triangle and then swing out and around again, bouncing back and forth. I usually call these bouncy echoes because that's what you're doing, bouncing back and forth. And that's kind of a nice visual. You don't want to stay on those edges for too long. You don't want to just stay right here and stitch with your, needle in one place. That's how you get knots. So I'm just bouncing back and forth until I fill up all the way to this point. Okay. And so at this point, you just look for the next triangle you want to fill, and you fill it the same way. So I'm kind of looking around, well, which one do I want to work on? I've got all these triangles all around me. I can work on any one of these. So I think I'm going to work down right here. It's almost like a little teardrop shape to start, and then just bounce back and forth. You can make it more curved. That certainly adds kind of a different dimension to the design. It's entirely up to you, and it is careful stitching. It is just back and forth, careful stitching. Now this one's going to widen out quite a bit, so swinging out and around, you might want to increase your speed as you swing around that kind of half circle shape that we're forming. Once you hit the edges, just bounce back and forth to fill one corner, then travel stitch over and fill in the other. That works out really well. Okay, And that's left me over here so I can fill in this little guy. And, you know, there's no right or wrong place to start. I can start in this, you know, kind of tight corner, this tight point. I can travel stitch over here and start my first kind of teardrop in that corner, or I can start over here. There's no right or wrong place to start any of the ripples in your triangles. When I was playing with this design, I kept finding that if I kind of put all of the starting points in the same spot, it almost creates a flower look. It almost looks like a flower petal. It's kind of cool. You can come up with things and you don't really expect them, and then because of the way everything comes together, you end up with something really interesting and different. So that's just a little bit of trapped ripples stitched in this little 4-inch square. Here's what it looks like when I finished filling it completely. So that's it for trapped ripples. I really hope that you enjoyed learning this interesting stacking design. You know, it was one of those things when I realized, kind of had that light bulb moment of how to break down my space into triangles. You know, it was very different from what I had been doing. I had been stitching each triangle kind of individually, trying to stack them together, and that was quite challenging. You might want to check out the original video for triangle mosaic, and you'll see what I mean. It can be challenging to try and fit triangles that way because they're not a shape that really stack easily when you stitch them individually. However, when you take it across the entire space and break up the space with long lines, it's very easy. It's not difficult at all. And you are going to end up with what's I think is the most fascinating thing. Lots of big triangles, lots of little triangles, and of course the trapped ripples inside of it just make it that much more interesting. So I hope that you have fun with this and definitely play with it in your next quilt. If you're looking for learning this design, if you'd like to learn this design in a larger scale, like maybe for a bed quilt, you might want to check out the Craftsy class, Free Motion Fillers Volume 1. I actually taught this design as well as 49 other designs on a larger bed quilting scale, softer scale. And so it was a little bit of a different approach to this exact same design. If you're interested in that, check the link below. You'll find a 50% off discount for that class. Okay, so that's it for this video. My name is Leah Day, and until next time, let's go quilt.